10 years from now, every major bank is going to be entirely crypto native, entirely stablecoin payment rails focused. I just don't see a reality where we still have MEV at the consensus level. So we just felt like it had to happen, and it finally can happen because of technological advances.
Jack O'Halloran is the co-founder of SKALE Network and CEO of SKALE Labs. SKALE now handles over 100 million transactions per month, supporting fast, gasless applications across gaming, AI, and consumer platforms.
Do you think AI adoption and optimization found a valuable use case yet?
If you look at AI applications, a lot of what they're going to do is automating decisions in our life and functions and helping us do things. And part of that will include buying and paying for things. And it's just the most efficient way to integrate payments into automation is crypto and stablecoins.
Today's guest is Jack O'Halloran, the co-founder of SKALE Network and CEO of SKALE Labs. In early June, SKALE recently launched FAIR, a new Layer 1 blockchain built for AI optimization, among other aspects like MEV-resistance, which we will get into in a bit. I'm excited to have Jack on the show today to talk about all of this and more. Jack, welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thanks
Pleasure
for
to be
being here. Oh my gosh, yes, of course. To start off, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you even got into this space for those who don't know you and why create Scale?
Yeah, I'll try to give the abbreviated version. But yeah, I come from traditional enterprise software. I was in mobile, a company called Good Technology. We were acquired by Motorola. I started a company in 2008, my first company, and it was actually a digital currency platform where enterprises and government organizations could mint this internal currency to pay for internal resources. And anyways, to make a long story short, we ended up pivoting and built one of the leading AI SaaS companies in the world, specifically for the life science vertical. So did that. That was my first, I don't know, X number of years of my career. But was always just a real strong, like, I was a huge Bitcoin advocate. Then Ethereum launched and I was like, Ethereum. And I realized when I was starting my next company, hey, like I just saw the promise and potential of smart contracts, programmable money, open, transparent ledgers and databases. It just made sense to me. And yeah, and so in 2017, got started on this journey, and we've formally started Scale, I think January 1st, 2018.
So 2018 to now, what do
Yeah.
you think has been the biggest constant and also the biggest change?
Yeah, it's interesting when you've been working in the space so long is that there's always a constant growth in terms of traction and building. And I remember in 2018, and there were about 20,000 unique active wallets using Ethereum per day. And
Hmm.
Ethereum was still hugely valuable, but it just, that's not very many wallets. Scale now has 100 million transactions a month and, millions and millions of wallets a month. And so do a lot of other chains. We're in the top 5 and, those in UAW and transactions, but this didn't exist before. So you see the builders have been building, there's great application developers or people pushing forward on the infrastructure side. But that trend line is pretty, has a more predictable trajectory. But then these market prices, they go above and below and above, and
Right.
that's this like unpredictable journey. But I'd say the constant, which is reassuring why I still am so passionate about working in this space, is that there's real traction being built and people, really, trying to change the world. And I think we're getting close to getting more of you're already seeing it with stable coins and like Bitcoin as a currency reserve, but we're hitting mainstream now in a lot of areas.
Hmm. You mentioned that Scale has over 100 million transactions a month. That is no small feat, as well as millions of wallets. What do you think is kind of the secret ingredient to creating a chain that builds actual traction and transactions and activity and liquidity and all these other categories that all these chains want to achieve, right? Because you guys have done it. And
Yeah.
so what was it?
Well, what it was is we really thought about user experience. And so gas fees and Scale are paid by developers, but they're paid in a chain fee. So the unit economics are way better. And so if you're a game, if you're an AI project, if you're a deep project and you want this global coverage for lots of users, lots of transactions, the costs are astronomical in a lot of other environments. You just can't, you have to, it really restricts your ability what you put on chain. We enable people to put everything on chain they think should be on chain.
Mm,
And um so I think a big piece of it was, having a real user perspective and also a developer perspective. And, we went to market really strongly in the categories we were focused on. And so, which is kind of interesting, like we weren't as focused on DeFi. We were very focused on gaming, very focused on AI, very focused on, other categories. But people that focus on DeFi, those are the chains with the largest, financial value.
right.
Um,
Right.
and part of that is like, we'll talk about this later, but Scale has, really built a phenomenal experience for developers and end users. But it's not the home, all of these applications that run on us, most of their value is stored on Ethereum or Binance. And then they bridge over to Scale. And so that's why we're launching this new layer one.
Okay, interesting. So historically, a lot of these projects weren't built on scale, and now they can be.
Yeah, well, they use Scale really as a layer two in a lot of ways. So they maybe mint their token or asset on Ethereum or Binance, and then they bridge it over, and then the users come to play the game, and all that activity is happening on Scale. And then people are
Right.
bridging back to Ethereum to swap and trade. And what we realize is developers want to stay in the ecosystem. And they want us to have a layer one. They want a huge DeFi ecosystem, and so really it was at the request of developers and seeing that, hey, we have the, fastest consensus, the, fastest time to finality of all of these blockchains. We've come up with something called Byte, which we'll talk about later, that is really innovative. And we thought, why are, let's bring this to the users.
Right. Yeah, I want to talk more about the new L1 called FAIR, which I mentioned in the intro, and you've kind of slowly mentioned throughout the beginning of the episode. Why did Scale Labs kind of decide to go down this route with the new chain built for AI optimization? Obviously, you mentioned developers had interest in this, but the AI component was interesting to me. I feel like AI has been a very strong narrative throughout this whole industry over the past like 12 to 18 months, I would say. But Scale, I've always known it as like, a very strong gaming chain. It has dApps, and as you mentioned, AI too. So why hone in on the AI side of things? And then what was the decision behind creating this?
Yeah, really good question. So I think first off, like, let's look at MEV.
Yes,
MEV, like, literally is spin on the term extractable. It's maximal
it is not a nice,
extractable
yeah,
value. And it's like,
acronym,
come
right?
on, like, you're not even gonna hide it. You're just telling me it's extracting value from me as a user.
hmm
But there's no other option. So people are trying to build these kind of, I'd say, band-aid solutions on top of blockchains to say, oh, well, if you do this in this zone, you can't get front run or sandwich attacked, et cetera. And so we just realized like that's a huge problem. And then, but you go talk to end users. It's almost like if you talk to people about data privacy in 2005, no one cared. Like, oh, whatever. And like now people are like,
Yep.
don't sell my data. And,
Yep.
don't cook.
Everyone doesn't want to accept the cookies anymore, right?
Yeah, yeah, but with MEV, no one really cares. But what we found is because they're like, oh, I just lose a little bit here and there every day. But when you start bringing in agentic trading and AI, automation into trading, where any normal user can say, oh, hey, here's, $5,000 of ETH, go manage a portfolio for me. Here's the risk tolerance. Here's, the amount of trades one person's going to do goes up dramatically. Okay. Um, the other element is people are limited with automated trading on what they can do. Like, so right now all you can do is market orders. You can't even do a limit order in DeFi because you're going to get front run. That limit order is going to be sitting out there on the books. And so like, okay, you look at indexes. Why are there no indexes? Because indexes have to rebalance, and the rebalancing is so inefficient that no one can even have an index. And so anyways, we realized that was a huge problem, and AI one helps enable that because we're using elements of AI for added security, but also AI is, we think, going to play such a big role for people in terms of managing their own portfolios, in terms of making payments, in terms of, you know, buying digital assets, selling digital assets, that that combined with the MEV resistance really is why we came up with the name FAIR. I mean, it's fair. And if you look at AI, or, boldly written as, the two vowels in that word. So that was our journey. It was, I look at the future, and I think 10 years from now, we're going to have every major bank is going to be maybe entirely crypto native, entirely, stablecoin payment rails focused. We're gonna have this transition. I just don't see a reality where we still have MEV at the consensus level in 10 years from now, if we are living in this future state. And so we just felt like it had to happen, and it finally can happen because of technological advances.
Does a form of MEV or actual MEV exist within traditional financial markets?
Yeah, to my knowledge, it's illegal. Like, if you figured out how to front run somebody, if Nasdaq or NYSE was
That's what
using
I thought,
computers to
right?
front run all your trades, like, I think they'd be in jail.
And yet in
We're just
crypto, it's
here,
just
yeah, they're like,
common
"Hey,
term. Yeah.
we're just extracting value from you. Don't worry."
Mhm.
And the other thing is, a big part of our, like, customer development and product market fit discovery was talking to traditional financial institutions. And one, a lot of them aren't even really aware of MEV. And two, when they are, they just think, "What? Why does this exist?" And three, they're like, "Okay, for us to use these products, we don't want MEV. We don't want every validator being able to reorder our transactions and, make money off us, or even, get sandwiched attacks." Somebody a couple months ago swapped 220K of USDC into USDT and got $5,000 because they didn't, on Uniswap, they didn't use the Uniswap UI, so they didn't, put a
Mhm.
cap on the slippage, and they got sandwich attacked.
It's
So it's
crazy. Yeah.
and it's just impossible to do that when you are able to encrypt the mempool, which essentially means, the if you and I are both validators and we need to attest that we have the same accurate information, right now, in order to do that, we both have to look at the information, which is the transactions and also the order. It also gives us the ability to reorder the transactions to our benefit. Um, with Byte, I can validate your that you and I have the same thing without either one of us needing to see what the thing is, which is a really cool thing. So it enables uh, encrypted, private transactions, while without giving up on accuracy or security.
Right. And it retains that privacy feature too that we were
Yeah.
talking about before. Is there ever any instances where MEV is good? Because I feel like some people like it. Maybe it's the people
Oh
that
yeah.
benefit off of it.
Oh, there was this, first it was this big. MEV has had a long, like, a really interesting narrative. If you're
Mhm.
if you're a branding or marketing person, it's really interesting because it's almost like, I don't want to say, like, I don't know. I don't
Go
what
on.
okay, but what I'd say is, it has gone through a lot of spin. Okay.
Mm.
It's almost like there's this PR group being like, "Oh, let us guide your market narrative here so that people like the fact they're getting value extracted." So what happened is, now it's getting one, there was this really famous blog post of, like, I forget what it was. It was like a play on words of a movie, like, um, uh, how I, decided to stop hating MEV and love, and love it, or something. And people are like, "Oh, we can monetize it." And so they realize, they're like, it's a way to bring economic value to validators. It's just additional monetization. And
Right.
so then now it's being kind of called REV, real economic value. It's REV, and hey, as, like, cost per transactions go lower and lower, the only way for blockchains to be, viable profit centers for validators is to have MEV. And so that's the spin you're hearing now. But guess what? It's coming on the backs of end users. It's an unfair tax. Like, if you want that, just make a transaction fee instead of, like, kind of taking things from people, extracting value from them. And so I think it's spin. And I also think, if you look at, like, Moore's law and the cost of computing, validators, the market will over time become more commoditized. The big players are going to grow because they're the ones that are going to have the cost efficiencies to be able to operate with slimmer margins. but it isn't. They should be able to operate in an incredibly healthy way on transaction fees and in gathering inflation compared to needing to just kind of take money from end users when they do trades or
Mhm.
business.
So being an MEV resistant chain kind of just creates more of, and it's literally the name of the chain, a fair experience.
Exactly.
Mhm.
And I
And
and
that's
I
where the
just,
name came from? Is
you
is
know,
that kind of the full circle moment here?
yeah, and if you think about it, like there's a lot of moments in history where people are like they didn't really know they had a problem and then because there just wasn't a solution. So people have
Right.
kind of been like, "Oh, like you just there's nothing you can do. A blockchain won't work if nodes can't reorder transaction see transaction order. It just won't work." And finally we have something you can do without it. And usually when that happens and with technology is that then that gets adopted broadly because you see it like people didn't buy, non-color television like black and white televisions after color televisions came out. And you know, it's anyways, I think it's a huge leap forward and we're excited. That's why we felt like we had to do it. It also I think is a perfect complement to Scale because in Scale we have so many users of people that are playing games, people that are using consumer applications, AI applications. And what we want to do is enable them to like have really connect like a tight connectivity to fair liquidity and depth from a financial perspective.
Right. Do you think there will be a world then? Because you talked about like, oh, in the past it was black and white TVs, now it's colored TVs, and that's so true. Like once people start to like acknowledge that the previous tech or whatever it may be wasn't that great, they're only going to naturally gravitate towards something better, right? So I think with that analogy in mind, do you think we're going to enter a world where more chains or developers will adopt this model of eliminating MEV at the consensus level instead of just working around it or accepting that it's there?
Yeah, I mean, my guess on how this stuff's going to unfold, this is just my prediction, is you're going to see other chains. MEV is picking up so much in momentum, and the amount of posts on MEV is going up massively month by month, and the awareness around it. And so what other chains are going to do, they're going to partner with these other products that can layer on top and provide with, a lot of UX difficulty and complexity, people trading experience that remove MEV, but only if you do ABC things. And I think that's going to help really drive the awareness of the problem. But then people are going to say, hey, well, why am I having to pay for all this entire other thing when it's all just in this in another system? And so I think people are going to say, hey, we either need to frankly, and you see this with gas fees. People don't want to pay dollar gas fees, $10 gas fees anymore. So
No.
the amount of
Yeah.
transactions happening across the blockchain industry, the vast majority of them are not on Ethereum. Whereas the liquidity is on Ethereum, the largest in TVL, but for daily use, people don't use Ethereum. They don't want to pay a dollar to do a transaction. They want to be in a roll-up environment or a scale chain environment or next gen L1 environment where just fees are lower. And I think that same shift's going to happen. We're like, well, why am I getting front run and back run and sandwich attacked all the time? And, not able to, even we're talking with a really big neobank right now. They want to just enable users, this logic to sit in people's wallets to enable them to just, send money and share money and not disclose how much money they have, where their wallet is. And so privacy is an important thing for normal users just to be able to gravitate to utilizing stable coins in a banking environment. And so we're seeing a lot of, I think once those use cases come into the market, it's also going to help the industry because each time the industry grows fast, it's around some new topic. And I think it was like launching tokens, ICO boom. Then it was DeFi. Then it was meme coin or NFTs. Then it
NFTs
was
and meme
meme
coins,
coins. And
yeah.
I think the next wave is going to be real utility of stable coins for normal people making payments, getting their paychecks, etc.
Mhm. How do you see stablecoins playing a big role within the FAIR chain?
Yeah, I think stable coins. Somebody told me the other day, stable coins will impact the world equally as much as AI over the next 5 years.
You
And
agree?
I I think I think, well, it depends on how crazy AI gets. But I think there's a good argument to say that. If you think about it, they're so much more efficient, and if you think about any time you've had to wire somebody money, how inefficient that is and how long it takes and, oh, and you can't send it after a certain hour. Like, just the fact you can only send money during certain windows doesn't
Archaic.
really make a lot
Yeah.
of sense. Only during Eastern Standard Time, during X hours, and it's gonna and the addition so the way and the other thing is about stablecoins is I think they're gonna really collaborate with AI because the cool thing about smart contracts is you can actually have programmable money that flows intelligently based off of, connected actions in smart contracts. And so I think that's where AI and stablecoins really actually have synergistic impact. So I'm, really, I've been big on stable coins for a long time when they solved all the problems everyone had back in 2018 when, everyone had all these crypto decentralized models, but then you had these currency fluctuations and now we have a place you can save money, you can spend money, you can utilize it within economic systems and, the power of crypto with, the stability of the dollar.
Yeah. No, I agree with you 100%. Do you think that the kind of AI adoption and optimization has not necessarily reached its peak, because I don't think that's true at all within the blockchain sector, but do you think it's found a valuable use case yet and that it really made its home in this industry, or there's still a lot of work to be done?
I think there's a lot of work to be done. I think the where we're seeing early traction is just agentic AI trading,
Right.
agentic DeFi applications, and these are still just the early adopters. Like, go ask 20 of your friends if they're using an agent to help them manage their portfolio. No one is. You'll unless well,
Yeah.
in New York in the crypto circles, the answer different. You'll have like half of them,
Right.
say yes. But in other places, you're normal. No one's doing that. Okay, even
Mhm.
people that hold Ethereum and Bitcoin, but there's real promise there and potential. And I think that's a really strong category. I think the other category is just if you look at AI applications, a lot of that, what they're going to do is automating decisions in our life and functions and helping us do things. And part of that will include buying and paying for things. And it's just the most efficient way to integrate payments into automation is crypto and stablecoins. So I just think as we start using AI more to pay for whether it be like, you know, our fees on the road, our groceries, our coffee, all the, whatever, a workout class, you're going to start seeing this integration with crypto and we're still like most people use AI to go help them write things or do things online or write code. They're not using it in their daily life, but I think we're going to cross that chasm pretty soon. And I just don't see a way that that's going to work well on traditional banking rails. It's going to
Mhm.
need, smart programmable money.
Yeah. So what would you say is the next big unlock for it in regards to both, the Web3 audiences, but then, mainstream audiences and banks?
Well, I think the focus, the weight is on the builders right now. And there's a lot of money that went into funding these AI projects. I think AI also has a little bit of an issue that crypto has, where a lot of the venture financing goes into infrastructure, not apps. And I think what we need to see is we're seeing so much money going into like people trying to win this LLM arms race. But I'm excited to see more money and more execution at the app level where people are then using like, hey, I'm not going to create my own LLM. I'll just use whatever the best one is, but here's the product I have. And so we need to see those products start launching. Um, but hey, I'll tell you, it's moving so fast. I built a game from scratch in 30 minutes last week or
That's
2 weeks.
crazy. And it works?
It works. It's a fun game. I put it on Twitter. I could put it on Twitter again. But
Wait, what's it called?
it I just it's I built this keep away game.
Uh-huh.
I could send you it's on a code pen.
Mhm.
It's but it's and it was so I was like, "Oh, let enable the walls to, for the ball to bounce off the wall, speed up the middle player." Like, I basically had control of the game engine through my voice, and you couldn't have done that 3 months ago. And so I just think we're kind of getting into this zone where the improvements are going to happen. And again, we're here talking about blockchain, not AI, but I just don't see a future where those two things aren't like really closely connected at the hip.
Right. I also think on the developer front, it'll just make it, like you said, that much easier to build things. The fact that you were able to create that in 30 minutes. I don't know if it required you to write any code, but
I didn't have all I had to do was copy and paste the code into, hosting site. It was
that's
just
crazy.
and it made me think like, hey, we should do an AI hackathon where we just have kind of non-engineers building these games and we, I think enables some Web3 hooks to be pushed in. But I think you're going to start seeing, when people have an idea, you can actually act on it.
Right. And very
Really,
quickly
yeah,
optimizing
very
for it,
quickly.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So with FAIR, is it in testnet or mainnet?
It is in testnet. So when testnet, we did the announcement as testnet went live,
Hmm.
and which is different than a lot of people. A lot of people do a huge press release when they have an idea and some slides, and then it takes them 3
An
years to build.
announcement of an announcement, you mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And, we did the big announcement and got all had all the press, when it was working and functioning in testnet. And so the next step will be public testnet or other, there'll be applications people can come use this publicly. And then we're looking at Q4 mainnet launch.
All right. And the public test net, when should that be expected?
We're looking at, I mean, it's August, September timeline.
Okay.
So hopefully August.
Right.
A
Given
lot of,
that
lot of
it's
building still to be done, but we're
for
really
sure.
close.
Yeah. About a month into testnet, how has it transpired so far? What has surprised you the most? Kind of give us the internal
Yeah,
thoughts.
what surprised me is, you know, it's interesting. Anytime you have a new product, you're carrying a value proposition with you. And I talk to so many people like, yeah, no one cares about MEV. MEV doesn't matter. I've seen even in the last month, like just that narrative change. But then when you talk to AI builders and like automated trading builders who want to use, people that want to do next gen features like limit orders and things you can do in a closed limit order book system, we're able to just bring this new functionality. And so I'd say the cool thing is like the value proposition seems to be growing. And a lot of, launching new products comes down to timing. Are you selling something that there's a need for and people care about? And I think that's shifting. So I think that's been cool. And also, once something's built, it really frees you up to talk to the builders. So we're having conversations every day and getting a lot of great feedback from the developer community. Which, if I could wave a magic wand and change crypto in one way, I would have it be more focused. It'd be great to have people be more focused on you know utilization and metrics and fundamentals and like developer interests than just hype.
Yeah.
I
100%.
think we're slowly making that shift.
Right. No, I agree with you on that. How would you define the relationship between Scale and Fair then? Is Scale the core contributor or the team behind Fair, or is it going to be a separate kind of
Yeah, so
entity?
SKALE Labs is the core team that will be helping on both projects. There's also decentralized builder, developers that are individual that are contributing. There are, validators. We're not going to run a single node again. There'll be other, all these other businesses, entities running validators and, people doing testing. So it's a decentralized project. SKALE Labs is the core team. And then if you think about it, Scale Network and Fair are really this almost yin and yang combination. They serve different purposes for the same ecosystem. And if you go look at like Avalanche has their CNET and all their subnets, those things work in harmony together. You look at Ethereum and these different rollups. These rollups are tacked on and to provide a different value than the Ethereum mainnet provides. And if you look at what Fair and Scale do together, it's really like enabling developers to operate in that one ecosystem with features they're not going to get anywhere else.
Right. Yeah. No, I think when I think about things like this, sometimes it's just kind of, I don't know, maybe like it's one and the same, but separate. Does that make sense or no?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, it does. And it is. Yeah, it's a they're separate tokens. The cool thing about FAIR, though, it'll also utilize scale. So validators have to buy scale and burn it in order to have a
Yes.
medallion to run a node. There's other functions where you need to burn scale in the FAIR ecosystem so that it actually decreases the supply of scale. And so they also work, one, they just have a synergy because they give different values to builders and let builders operate in one environment. Two, FAIR actually burns scale tokens. Three, there's going to be a big airdrop of FAIR tokens to scale holders too, with
Right.
different time
Yeah, I
frames.
wanted to talk about the token component to all of this, the dual token model, where FAIR gets its own native token, while the existing Scale SKL token is kind of relevant through burn mechanics. What was kind of the decision behind this, and how do you kind of see the opportunities for FAIR and SKL token holders to be like rewarded and more long-term thinking in, both the near term and the long term?
Well, I'll first say there was initially it was just like, let's just use the scale token. And what we realized is technically it's impossible to have a layer one without its own native token. Otherwise, the security of that layer one is the bridge. uh, and so, and scale's listed on 50 some exchanges. And so did make sense to take that away and, take away the momentum happening in the scale network, but to add a new token that, uh, that worked in conjunction with Scale, and which was really a dual token network. And I think it's maybe the first one of its type. Um, but you'll need the FAIR token in order to pay gas fees on the FAIR chain. Validators will need Scale tokens in order to run nodes. And we're also trying to establish other mechanisms like end users could pay in Scale, and that gets burned. I think there's 4 different functions of already being brought forward of the way FAIR will burn Scale.
Right. Okay. And then what do you see as kind of the long-term goal with the Scale token then? Is it to kind of phase it out or to keep it
No,
alive?
no, I think it's gonna be critical. It's a critical part of the ecosystem. You need to buy Scale tokens to pay for a Scale chain. You need to
Okay.
buy Scale tokens, to secure validator nodes in the Scale network. And there's 100 million transactions a month and millions of users. Like, we don't wanna mess that up. We need to, and I think, there's a I think the demand and value of the Scale token from a utility perspective will just grow even more by being connected to this adjacent network and new token. And new things are good. They drive interest, they drive awareness. We're an older project with new tech. And so it's, I think, a way to, drive energy and excitement and, in a way that's authentic and meaningful.
Something you said before, Jack, was about timing. And you've been in the space for a number of years now. So I think you probably know a thing or two about timing. Sometimes I hear people say that you don't even need to time things, just put it out there. And then other people are like, no, I'm waiting for the right moment to launch a token or launch my product upgrade or whatever it may be. And sometimes people are waiting just because like the tech isn't fully ready. And other times people are waiting for kind of market conditions, right? So how do you
Mhm.
kind of think about the opportunity today? And was there a timing decision involved in launching FAIR? I'd imagine yes.
Yeah, you know what? It's really interesting because I think if you try to get too cute with it and control things a little too much, you're
Exactly. It's
you
not
it's
gonna
gonna
work, right? Yeah.
so there's one school of thought that just says, "Hey, execute on your plan. Don't worry about you can't control it's like you can't control the weather, but you can control how you
Right.
dress." Like,
That's so
so,
true, yeah.
but but I think there's a little bit of flexibility. So I think you don't want to. I mean, we were thinking, hey, let's just, should we wait to announce this? Because we're announcing this during one of the worst times ever for altcoins from a market perspective, right? And we said, you know what? Like, every day it's not announced, it limits our ability to be decentralized in growth and contribution from people. Um, Number two, it limits our time that we can market this new thing, and so
Yeah.
it's like you have opportunity costs each day. You're not being, just doing something. And so we kind of were like, yeah, let's just operate on our plan. And then, hey, with regards to the timing of the next things, maybe there's things can move up or back a little bit, but we developers want it now. So that's driving us to do it. And hey, I hope we're, I feel optimistic in general about, the health of this industry. And, hopefully these global wars can be figured out, the tariff situations. It's been a rocky
Right.
year from a, markets perspective, but I'm feeling, this is not financial advice, but I'm an optimist
On the tech side. Yes.
on the tech and the market. I think the markets are
Okay.
gonna, that's you know, my feeling. I think, listen to, a lot of the, macro experts out there, have a lot of confidence in some things that are gonna, I think, have an impact.
For sure. Aside from everything we talked about today, Jack, what do you think are the biggest opportunities on this front with FAIR? What are you most excited for?
Yeah, I mean, it's not often you're building something that is actually just an entirely new category and can make the prior category obsolete. And I had a talk with one of our VC partners yesterday, talking about category design. And you look at this whole concept of category design, you need something that's like authentically differentiated. Otherwise, you just kind of, you drown in the sea of sameness.
Yep.
And
So
so I
true.
think it's just exciting that we have this thing that is legitimately different at its core, and the feedback's been great from developers. So I think it's hard to crack the narrative nut in crypto. I think there's a lot of people fighting for that attention space, but I feel, great that it's really hard to do that when you're the same. When you're
Yeah,
different and it adds value, it makes that a lot easier.
100%. Last thing, Jack, you've been in this space since 2018, maybe earlier, 2017, you'd say?
Yeah, working full time. I've been a crypto enthusiast for much longer.
Yeah. Um, can you leave us with a piece of advice? Something that you've carried with you throughout your time in this space?
Yeah, I mean, I would say one thing I've learned is there's a lot of smoke and mirrors out there. Like, do your own research, dig under the hood. And the nice thing is most information is pretty public in the space.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And I think a lot of people just don't go that extra mile, whether it be figuring out who you're partnering with or which tokens you want to stake or whatever it might be. Like, just take that extra time and the answers are there waiting for you.
Yeah, for
Don't follow
sure.
the crowd. Be a, you know, be a do
BYOR,
your
do
own
your
thing.
own research.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
There we go. Amazing. Jacqueline, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you. It was fun. I appreciate it.